Hello, friends, and namaste. Welcome back to the Sacred Space with me, your host Preetha Lal, as we spend time reading the book Eternal Values for a Changing Society by the late Srimad Swami Rangananthanandaji. As you are aware, if you're following this podcast, Swami Ranganathananda was the 13th president of the Ramakrishna Matan Mission, but he was also so much more. He was a scholar par excellence, a spiritual ambassador, a philosopher, and a teacher. This multi-volume treatise that I have decided to read to you through this podcast is a testament to his breadth of his knowledge and the depth of his wisdom. In today's episode, Swami Ranganathananda begins with the initial mental tonic that Sri Krishna offers to Arjuna as he urges him to rise and cast away his faint-heartedness. The Swami then elucidates how this tonic is not just for Arjuna alone, but is a wake-up call to all of us who are doused with lethargy in mind and body. He then goes on to talk about the innate divinity of the human being, that is the essence of Vedanta. The paragraphs I will read today are a beautiful transition of some potent verses for our warrior prince from the words of the Lord. And the Swami unfolds a deeper truth that is relevant and relatable even in the present day. Let us begin. The initial mental tonic to Arjuna. When we come to the second chapter, we are at the very dawn of true philosophy. The very first task of philosophy is to bring steadiness and confidence into the mind of the student. That is what Sri Krishna does to Arjuna. This is the significance of verses 2 and 3 of the second chapter. In such a crisis whence come upon thee, O Arjuna, this dejection, un-Arya-like, disgraceful and contrary to the attainment of heaven? Yield not to unmanliness, O son of Preetha, I'll doth it become thee. Cast off this mean faint-heartedness and arise, O scorcher of thy enemies. In these two verses, we have the application of a mental tonic by Sri Krishna to Arjuna, and that tonic was necessary before any teaching could be fruitful. When a person is grief-stricken and his nerves are shattered, no amount of teaching or advice whatever can bear fruit, and much less philosophy. A measure of calmness is necessary, a calmness that is dynamic and not merely passive. The spirit of the whole teaching of the Gita can be derived from the latter of these two verses. Swami Vivekananda, in his Thoughts on the Gita from the Complete Works in the 8th edition, says, if one reads this one shloka, he gets all the merits of reading the entire Gita, for in this one shloka lies embedded the whole message of the Gita. Unquote. The educational value of that tonic. It is not merely for Arjuna, but for every person who is at his wit's end that this teaching comes to rouse one up. We require to be roused up again and again, for the mind has always a tendency to sink and slumber. But there is also the other capacity to rouse up the mind and apply it to the battle of life, which capacity is practically dormant in the majority of people. But this capacity is to be developed. If we cannot do it ourselves, we shall require somebody else to do it for us. That is what a great teacher, a scripture, or an ideal does for us. Sri Krishna played this part in the case of Arjuna. We require some great person to do it for us. Vedanta says that infinite resources are there in every individual. The human being is potentially divine, but he has to tap his inner resources, and a great teacher has the power to bring out this potential capacity from out of himself as well as from others. By the mere touch of a great teacher, we begin to manifest great energy and power of which we were not even conscious before. Sri Krishna gave that magic touch to Arjuna by the words, ill doth it become thee. In the sentiment contained in that famous short sentence, we have the appeal through psychology to every individual to rise higher and higher and to find new sources of strength within oneself. The educational value of this appeal is supreme. How to help another person, how to make him or her stand on one's feet is a great educational problem. How to undertake the task of making that person rise higher and find ways and means to develop one's own life and power? In this larger context, this consideration becomes relevant because Sri Krishna's appeal is a general appeal. It has a positive content. The earliest method of inducing behavior in another was through fear. This appeal to fear was to one's social and religious emotion. But the appeal to fear is fraught with danger. It entails much that is bad along with a bit that is good. In all religions, you find this appeal to fear in the theories of hell and judgment and the like, designed to induce good behavior in the individual. This is a primitive conception in religion, that through the hope of heaven or the fear of hell, people do good or abstain from evil. Coming to the social sphere, we find people desisting from evil for the fear of the police and social boycott. This is what obtains either a primitive society or religion, or even in a civilized society. But these appeals do not serve to bring out the best in the individual, for hope and fear only appeal to vanity. These have played their part in the evolution of humanity. Probably at some stage humanity has need of their services. This is the utmost that we can say in their favor. But the least that we can say of them is that they are not the best means available for inducing correct behavior. We may not be able to give them up for the reason that humanity is at varying stages of evolution. Behavior based on fear is all that most people are capable of understanding, as also behavior based on the prospect of enjoyment or approbation. But when you come to educational psychology, when you come to the question as to what is really beneficial to the individual, the best is what Sri Krishna does when he appeals to the sense of self-respect of the individual. In all cultured families, influencing the behavior of children is done through this appeal to their self-respect and not to their sense of fear. In uncultured societies, parents resort to the fear appeal either through ghosts or through darkness, which are the sources of fear. But in all such cases, what we seek is not the education or development of the individual, but merely the temporary influencing of outward behavior through the methods that tend to leave a permanent scar on the inner person. That proves their worthlessness as an educational method. Character based on the master sentiment of self-regard. If we want to institute an appeal that is constructive and positive, that will help one to develop his or her capacities more and more, and make the person concerned stand on one's own feet, it must be based upon the notion of the self-respect of the individual. When we tell a child, this conduct of yours is not fit for you, I expect you to do better, this is not up to the mark, we are appealing to a positive element in the child. It is positive and constructive and not negative and destructive. Modern psychology throws much light on this problem. Modern psychology recognizes self-regard or self-respect as the foundation of character building. According to William McDougall of the Harvard University, in his book Character and Conduct of Life, it is the master sentiment, and character is the product of the organization of sentiments and emotions round this master sentiment of self-regard. No character can be built without self-regard as the basis. Take away whatever self-regard a man has, and you can never make him a man or help him to develop his character. The difference between a human and a brute is the self-regard or self-respect. People have been reduced to the level of brutes as a result of the taking away from them this precious quality of self-regard by social tyranny and social neglect. Take a slave. There is little of self-regard left in him, for society, by continued oppression, has all but destroyed this quality in him. The instilling of this fundamental virtue in such a person is a difficult process. It will have to be done by those who are themselves free. That we can rekindle in him this virtue is because, in becoming a slave, he has only forgotten but not forfeited his real nature. The slave must therefore first develop self-regard as the very first step in self-development. The greatest harm, therefore, that one can do to another is to touch his self-respect. Whatever you do, do not destroy another's self-regard, for by that we pave the way for his ruin. This maxim is a sure and wise guide in all social relationships. Unfortunately, this is observed more in its preach than in its observance, for we are not capable of informing action with thought. We see masters treating their servants as if they are lifeless property. The servant works for the master, but he has not sold his soul to him. The master, through his thoughtlessness, injures the servant's self-regard. That is why sensitive servants complain to the master. You may beat me, but please don't abuse me and my forefathers. For abuse touches the very sensitive part of an individual, his self-respect. If we want to educate a person and do real good to him, we must preserve and develop this priceless quality in him. Modern theories of education are based upon this supreme psychological truth. Psychology teaches the great value of this master sentiment in the formation of character. Teachers and parents who destroy the self-respect of their wards through their thoughtless dealings are enemies of society. The modern theory says that we are not dealing with pots and pans when we are dealing with children. We are dealing with delicate, vibrant, living personalities. We are dealing with unformed minds, and whatever we do sticks on, hence the need for expert care. The innate divinity of the human. In this lies all the essence of Vedanta. Swami Vivekananda put it in his own memorable words from the Complete Works in the 12th edition. He says, "Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divine within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control, or philosophy by one or more, or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details." Unquote. In our dealings with an individual, we are dealing with a vast reservoir of power that, at present, is lying dormant. But given a proper training, it can develop into an immense flood. One who is rightly trained is a powerful personality, and one who is badly trained is a truncated personality. This great psychological truth is embodied in the appeal contained in Krishna's exhortation to Arjuna, when he says, "This does not befit you." The world knew who Arjuna was, one who had fought many a battle victoriously. Should he now be subject to fear and despair? Should he not rather try to pit his inborn heroism and goodness against the challenge of a trying environment, bringing out more and more of his inborn power and perfection in the process? This is true education in the hard school of life, and Sri Krishna is the guide of Arjuna in that profound educational process. It is education based on a profound philosophy. Vedanta and modern educational theory are in full accord here. Thank you, friends, for your time and attention as we conclude this episode today. I hope you felt what I did as I read today. This book is indeed a wellspring of values that are eternal, even as we stand amidst so much change in our lives, both within and outside of ourselves. Next time, we will pick up where we left off and read Swami Ranganathananda's take on the concepts of ethical sense and how it is a byproduct of spiritual growth and some of the deeper nuances in the Gita that we often miss. But more on that next time. For now, thank you for joining me in the space today. Until next time, this is your host, Preetha, and Namaste.